the thing with Mametz, the first thing was it was clearly too large a show to do in a theatre. I think Owen wrote it for a site. And so we had to find, the first thing was trying to find a site that was appropriate, that could convey that sense of the wood, but also had the wide open spaces, and also, very significantly, that an audience could get to.
Hello! Hello, and sorry for the delay, and welcome to another Cook's Battlefield Experience Tour, and welcome to this beautiful part of Monmouthshire, which for the next few hours will transform into one of the battlefields of the Somme.
A site speaks more closely to the subject matter. If it's site-specific. I mean, site-specific shows a show that is generated specifically for that site. It can be done anywhere else. Or site-located is a show that you're putting on in a site environment. So you get a lot more for that. You're paying a price because you're spending a lot of money on infrastructure. Well, one of the great things about putting it on in a theatre is that the theatre is designed to put shows on. So it has all those facilities. You know, it has flying, so that you can do scene changes relatively easy. Whereas if you're on a site, you've got to move things around. Yeah, and you can't really put stuff above you. Lighting in a site-specific environment is quite difficult. And also, of course, you've got to get generators in. You've got to get welfare facilities, both for your performers and for your audience. So everything you kind of assume you'll have, you actually have to bring in. A field that doesn't have running water, doesn't have electricity, doesn't have security, doesn't have dressing rooms. You have to bring in trackways so that you can heavy goods vehicles can come in to deliver the equipment that you need. So all of that is missing. So a theatre is a much simpler environment, but the site itself gives you something that there is less suspension of disbelief in a way. We built, I think it was about half a kilometre of trench. And we had originally thought about digging the trench into the ground. But it's very important if you're doing a show or if you're working on somebody else's property, not to damage it. You know, that you want to kind of remain friends afterwards and you want to kind of leave a good memory. So in the end, what we actually did was we built slightly walls like that out of corrugated iron. And it still conveyed that sense of oppression. And occasionally we would place a platform behind the corrugated iron, which would place a performer on, so they'd be looking down on you. So you felt much more subterranean than, of course, you were. And by the time you'd walked along it for a while, you really did get the sense of that, the big underground. When we got into the trench environment in the cow shed, it was very, very dramatic, very difficult for the audience and the performers. But there was a very strong moment when we had blackened out one of the wall. It was an open wall with black masking, and we opened that out, and there was a gasp moment when the audience saw outside all this this huge vista. It relocated you back into the countryside, into the location. But also, it's a very simple thing about making theatre outside is never fight the environment. The nature is always going to win because it is so big and so powerful. And we just had to let those trees speak for themselves. And it was a real gasp moment. The whole audience were very moved. And then we moved the audience up through the field into the wood, which John Bors, the designer, had asked for a number of photographs, which we printed out. They're about 3 meters by 2 meters and varying sizes of faces of soldiers who died at Mametz. And they were hung around the trees, hung in various different parts of the wood. And so that added a terrible resonance and poignancy to the whole experience.
When we rushed the first trench, I tripped. I fell onto the body of a dead Boche. I waited for the steel between my shoulder blades, but it never came, so I pushed myself off him and I carried on. So many of us were dead by then, or dying. We regrouped with strangers, men from other companies and battalions. It was slow, but we fought on.